little girl, and she will always cry, shouting, "Daddy, please stop. Daddy, it's paining me. Daddy, it's scary." In a small town called Kato, there lived a little girl named Lua. She was just 7 years old, and she lived with her parents, Mr. Ari, and her mother, Asa. Lua was a very beautiful girl who had a beautiful smile, but unfortunately, she never got to smile because she was not happy in her own parents' home. It all began one day when Lua was in her room and her father, Mr. Ari, walked in. He said to her, "Lua, I want to show you what it means to be a woman, but you must not tell anybody. It is a secret. Make sure you don't tell anyone." Little Lua did not know what her father meant, but she trusted him. Of course, it is her father, and she trusted whatever her father said. Mr. Ari started having intimacy with his 7-year-old daughter. He forced himself on the little girl, and she would always cry, shouting, "Daddy, please stop. Daddy, it's paining me. Daddy, it's scary." But Mr. Ari would not listen. Lua didn't understand what was happening. She only felt a sharp pain down below that scared her, and it was hurting her. She ran away most times, but Mr. Ari would always catch her. At 7 years old, Lua was traumatized. You must be wondering where Mrs. Asa, her mother, had been while this is going on. Stick with me with this story. Mrs. Asa owned a very big shop in the city. She owned the biggest fabric shop in the city where everyone comes to buy from her at wholesale prices. She was always in her shop. She was so into her business that she never cared to know what is happening in her home. Mr. Ari, on the other hand, was a man who worked from home, creating websites for company, so he had the time to commit the atrocities he's committing because he was always at home alone with his daughter Lua. One day, Mrs. Asa was sitting on the dining table, calculating and counting money as usual. That is all she cared about. Then Lua walked up to her and said, "Mommy, why does Daddy hurt me when you are not around?" Lua's voice was small and trembling, but her mother Asa didn't even look from the pile of papers spread across the dining table. Asa was a very businesswoman, always focused on her shop and money. Nothing else mattered. And she responded to Lua's question, "Lua, please, not now." Flipping through her ledger, her attention was fixed on the numbers. "Can't you see that I'm busy? You know how hard I work to make sure we have enough. Just go and do your homework." "But Mom," Lua said again, her voice cracking as she stood there, clutching the hem of her shirt, desperate for someone to listen to her. "Lua, I said I am busy," Asa snapped, finally looking up, her eyes flashing with impatience. "You always bring up silly things when I'm trying to work. Go to your room." Lua swallowed hard, her words dying in her throat. She wanted to scream, to beg her mother to hear her, but she knew it was pointless. Her mother never listened, never seemed to care about anything but the shop. So Lua turned quietly and went to her room, her heart heavy with the secret she was forced to carry alone. Mr. Ari continued to sneak into Lua's room every night, and whenever Madam Asa went to the shop, he always had his way with his daughter. He would always tell Lua to keep it a secret, that he was only trying to make her feel like a woman. And Lua would always say, "Daddy, but it is always painful. I don't like it. I'm going to tell mommy." And the father would always shout at Lua, "If you tell anybody, you will die. Do you want to die?" And out of fear, innocent Lua will say no, and she will keep it to herself. But deep down, she needed someone to talk to. She needed attention. She needed someone to express her pains and feelings to. Oh dear Lua, she wanted to talk to her mother, but her mother never gave her a listening ear. It was as if she was all alone in the world. Her father, who was supposed to be protecting her, was committing all of this with her. And her mother, who was supposed to be her guardian angel, was never available for her. One evening, Lua was sitting at the staircase, crying, her eyes swollen. She had gone to her mother again, hoping, praying that this time Asa would listen. But he had ended like all the other times. "Mom, can I talk to you? It's about Daddy," Lua had whispered, her hands trembling as she gripped the edge of the table where Asa was counting her money. Asa didn't even look up. "What is it now, Lua? You are always complaining about something." Lua's heart pounded in her chest. "It's about what Daddy does when you are not home. He, she couldn't bring herself to say it. The words felt like they would burn her throat. "Lua, I don't have time for this," Asa said sharply, slamming the pile of cash down on the table. "You are always making up stories. Daddy works hard to take care of us, and you are just trying to cause trouble, you little brats." "But Mom, please," Lua's voice broke, tears streaming down her face as she begged her mother to listen. "I said enough," Asa yelled, her patience snapping. "If you are not happy here, maybe you should go live somewhere else. Stop being so dramatic. You're just trying to get attention." Lua was turned into silence. She felt the walls of her world closed in on her. No matter how hard she tried, her mother always shut her down. No matter how much she cried, Asa never believed her. The one person who was supposed to protect her couldn't even see her pain. The next morning, Lua sat at the breakfast table, her eyes dull and lifeless. Asa was already dressed for the day, her bag packed with other slips and money. "Make sure you behave today, Lua," Asa said, kissing the top of her head, absently, not even noticing the tears brimming in her daughter's eyes. "I have to meet an important client." As soon as Asa left the house, Mr. Ari's mood changed. He smiled at Lua in a way that made her skin crawl. The man was a monster, hiding in plain sight. Weeks went by, and the same pattern continued. Lua tried to tell her mother again and again, but Asa was too consumed by her business. She always dismissed Lua's cries for help, calling her dramatic or too sensitive. Every time Lua tried to speak up, Asa would say things like, "Don't you see how hard I'm working? You are lucky to have a roof over your head, Lua. Stop making up stories." Lua gave up after a while. She stopped trying to talk to her mother, stopped hoping that anyone would save her. She retreated into herself, becoming quieter, her laughter fading into silence. Things grew worse for Lua until one day, Asa finally caught a glimpse of the truth. She returned home early from work, something she never did, and found Mr. Ari in Lua's room, doing the very thing Lua had tried to warn her about. She met her husband, Mr. Ari, having intimacy with her 7-year-old daughter. Asa's world crumbled in an instant. She screamed, pushing Mr. Ari away and cradling Lua in her arms. For the first time, she realized what her daughter had been trying to tell her all along. Asa called the authorities, and Mr. Ari was taken away. In his defense, he said Asa was not always available for him. Asa was always busy with her business, and he needed companion and company. Can you imagine the defense, dear viewers? Is that an excuse? Anyways, Lua was taken for counseling, where she slowly began to heal from the trauma she had endured for so long. Asa wrecked with guilt, quit her job, and dedicated herself to rebuilding her relationship with her daughter. She had learned the hard way that money and business couldn't replace the love and care a child needs. As for Mr. Ari, the monster father, he was sent to life in prison, and he spent the rest of his life in jail. The moral of the story is simple. Always listen to those who come to you with their pain, especially children. Ignoring their cries for help can lead to more suffering. You never can tell what they have in mind to say to you. No amount of money or success is worth losing the ones you love. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope you learned a lesson. To be a good parent, to be a listening parent, not a mother like Asa, and not a father like Mr. Ari. My name is Onyi of Onyi Stories and Folktales, and please, if you haven't subscribed, kindly be a part of my growth. Please kindly click on the subscribe button, turn on the notifications so when I post more stories like this, you'll be the first to get them. And if you're a returning subscriber, hey, thank you so much for listening to my stories. I really appreciate your support. And if you can still hear my voice, it means you watched the story to the very end. You're the real MVP. Thank you so much. I do not take your support for granted. See you in my next video. Bye-bye.